And then what happened after that? So you got started to be exposed and read more about anarchism and communism, and then what then?
The way it happened for me was, so I was a pretty active attendee to a regular Tuesday drum circle at was at Trinity Bellwoods and Queen's Park. And what happened was the organizers more or less were sort of saying, like, we can't keep our permits because local neighborhoods don't like us. The drum circle attract a certain type of person to them, and more or less what we had to do is collect petitions from local residents and have them say, yeah, I live in the area and I'm okay with this happening.
Right.
And so that first real activism in any sense was just because I wanted to keep playing my djembe with my friends.
Yeah.
And I learned there how like what the actual process was in terms of, if we get petitions and we give these petitions to a city councillor, theoretically that city councillor will let us continue to do what we want to do.
Yeah. Did it work?
And then through that, kind of got more involved and learned about it, working at Greenpeace as well. Learned a lot about policy, because you have to learn how to talk about policy and convince people of it.
Yeah.
And then it was through when I was going to university and then working at Toronto Environmental Alliance, interacting with a lot of people who were actual like political activists. Yeah. And then, of course, at Concordia, there's a pretty good reputation about political activism.
Yeah.
I chose to go to that school because I went to, for my final year of high school, I transferred to an alternative high school. That actually is called the Student School.
Okay.
And the curriculum is voted on by students, and the teachers have one vote as well per.
Yeah.
We had no principal, and so my interest in anarchism kind of moved more towards things like democratic socialism and direct democracy.
Yeah.
Because I was in a situation where it was primarily at-risk kids, and it kind of moved more towards being a safe place for queer kids, I think.
Yeah.
As you know, things change over time.
Yeah.
But that really opened up my eyes to having a teacher, do a class called the politics of protest. Got my English credit reading Sartre and Beauvoir, and then got my gym credit doing yoga. So it was sort of like one of those types of schools.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that combined with the drum circle activism really kind of pushed me towards going to Concordia, and then at Concordia was somewhat involved, but I think the real catalyst beyond just me viewing the activism as sort of a side project or work or anything like that was the 2012 student strike.
Of course. Right. Can I just back up for a sec? Why did you switch from the art school to the alternative school, if you want to talk about it?
I wasn't at risk, but I was friends with a lot of the at-risk kids, and I kind of had an issue with authority.
Fair.
And when I made the decision, I didn't want to pursue drama anymore. I heard that this really cool school doesn't have a principal. My parents more or less said, like, as long as it's still a high school and you'll graduate, we're fine.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up going there.
Okay.
And then a number of friends I also had ended up going there as well, because it is a very good school and kind of guaranteed. I think some of my friends wouldn't have graduated if it wasn't for that learning situation.
Yeah, they're amazing schools. We need more alternative schools. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so 2012 student strike. Right.
Yes.
So you were in third-ish year? You think you graduated in 2013?
It was my third year. I was a philosophy major. We, at the time, the student association was run more or less by a group of very radical young women who were very competent and knew what they were doing. And I would go to events and things like that, but I wasn't particularly interested in getting involved. And then our student association was the third student association to have a strike vote. So we were after fine arts and geography. And as things typically go. They voted to go on a ongoing strike with no need for a vote for renewal, which a lot of people got really upset about.
Right.
And I more or less just saw my friends getting just like torn to pieces on Facebook because, you know, people were upset because they didn't go to the meeting.
Yeah.
But of course, they didn't go to the meeting, and now they're being told that they're on strike, and the entire thing basically unfolded where I realized, like, oh, I'm upset at these assholes. I didn't go to the meeting. I was just going to go on strike.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I think there needs to be some help provided here.
Right.
And so got much more involved in terms of the organizing and the meetings and really trying to get Concordia students to get used to the idea of what, you know, the Francophone students have already done like 50 times at the universities.
Yeah.
And so we were sort of on like the front lines in terms of the debate that was happening internally at Concordia.
Yeah.
And that was really I would say that was sort of the first like leadership or real activism I've done.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was more just like helping with some tasks, but this was, you know, actually trying to make arguments and convince people to do things and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. What a great politicizing experience. And so, well, actually, no, I think I want to, if it's okay, to hear then what happened after that. So then you finished university. Well, student trek happened, hugely successful. I mean, from the outside anyways. I know it's a mix, but, and then what, in terms of your activism and your trajectory after that, you obviously stayed involved.
So that was in my third year. So after that, I joined student government as the internal rep, and we successfully ensured that no philosophy student failed their term, which was a pretty good thing. I mean, not every student association was able to claim that, so we were very happy with that. We were able to convince professors to not fail students.
Yep.
And then after that, continued to be involved in, you know, issues to do with Toronto Environmental Alliance, you know, local environmental issues. And then it was just before the municipal election where I ended up kind of stumbling into managing a candidate's campaign, that I took an interest in joining the NDP.
Yep.
Where I had been hired to canvass for NPP Jonah Shine, who ended up losing that election back when Kathleen won her majority. And then shortly after that, I canvassed for Joe Cressy, who's now a city councillor, but he was running for the NDP to replace Olivia Chow when she left her seat to run for mayor. And so I had met some folks working on those campaigns, especially the Joe Cressy by-election campaign, because it was a by-election. There was people from all over the country coming in to try to retain that seat and keep it. And there was some really good people, but there was also, it was interesting because I met a lot of people who agreed with my criticisms of the party, which I didn't necessarily expect as much as I did. And then I ended up emailing my local riding association, which was Etobicoke Lakeshore at the time, and the secretary of the riding association, who is now a very good friend of mine, Tim, who was actually a rave DJ and DJ'd at raves I went to in high school. More or less like recruited me into the riding association. Because we both agreed that we were riding what we were never really going to win, so we could at least try to push the party.
Right.
And at this point, I was very convinced that that internal party activism was probably the way to go in terms of pushing the NDP in a position I wanted it to be.
So this
at the time, I was very
sorry. This is provincial NDP.
At the time, I was very convinced that proportional representation was like the be-all to end-all, and so that was a motivating factor.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify. It's the provincial NDP we're talking about, right? Or federal?
So in that riding association, it was both federal and provincial. They had a joint riding association.
Okay.
Some riding associations, they have them separate. This was a case where it was a joint one.
Okay. And sorry, and because I interrupted, so one of your concerns was that the push for proportional representation was insufficient? Was that?
That I thought the push for proportional representation was very important.
Yes.
And I saw the NDP as the most likely way of getting that done.
Yes.
And then as I've remained in the party to this day, I now see other things that are insufficient in the party and I want to change.
Right.
And I'm skeptical of party politics, but I'm still active in it.
Yep, fair. Yeah, okay. Cool. So you may have already kind of touched on this, but what would you say have been the most important influences in your activism?
I would really say it's the student school. Was a major influence to me in terms of
the student strike?
The student, well, my last high school I went to.
Oh, the alternative school, student school, right.
Yeah.
Yes, the alternative school.
And so,
yeah.
And so having adult teachers teach me about, political movements and activism and protest, and then explicitly be like, yeah, and your political opinion matters.
Yeah.
I think was a huge turning point for me in a lot of ways, where I really learned that if you want to get something done, it was being at that school kind of got me over the feeling of, oh, well, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Someone who knows what they're doing should handle this.
Right.
That's when I sort of realized, oh, there's just no one doing this. If you don't do it, it won't get done. And I think that was the big motivating factor for me. And then everything kind of built off of that. I'd say that was sort of the big catalyst for me, was going to that school for a year.
Yeah.
Really opened my eyes up to what is possible.
Yeah. And so I just want to dwell on that for a minute, because so there would have been, and you mentioned, like, at-risk students, queer students, at risk in a different way, but like often homeless or almost homeless, precariously housed youth also end up in the alternative schools as kind of a last step. Were those amongst your classmates, and did you see them absorbing? I mean, you can't necessarily say, but did it feel as if that was a kind of shared understanding amongst all the classmates around the importance of getting involved and understanding politics, or was there divisions?
I think there was definitely, it was on a scale.
Yeah.
When I say I'm from Ford Nation, I believe it was Krista Ford, actually. So Doug Ford's daughter, who ended up playing football, actually attended the student school briefly, because it kind of developed a reputation of being easy.
Okay.
In that you were given a lot of leeway. At the time, you could skip 10 classes, and then you would only have to explain your absence for 11 plus.
Yeah.
However, the flip side of that is that there were students there where this was their last chance to graduate before they are completely aged out of the system.
Yeah.
I would say, a lot of us, it was a very clear understanding across the majority of the students there that there was things inherently wrong with society, and that injustice exists and was impacting all of us in different ways.
Yeah.
But the way that the student school and the way the teachers really functioned there at the time, especially, there was never I wasn't struggling. In school I was bored.
Yeah.
And my parents, as I said, were very middle class. However, I think the fact that I got in so well, and so did other students who were similar backgrounds to me, fit in so well with students who were homeless, or in some instances living with a teacher or something like that, just temporarily, so they could attend the school and be within the catchment area.
Yeah.
really opened my eyes to community care and things like that was the first real sense of community in any real sense that I've experienced. I've never really had that before.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay, I'm going to shift to talk about the sort of more abstract concepts. And there's no, right or wrong answers. It's just kind of exploring ideas. So, first one, when I say the word democracy, what comes to mind for you?
I think of like a general meeting or like
general meeting, yeah.
Yeah, like I think of like Robert's Rules of Order. I think of speakers list. Like that when you say democracy, that's what I think of.
Yeah. So the kind of formal processes.
Or the messiness of the formal processes and how messy it can get. So that's kind of what I think of. I think of a very robust meeting.
A very robust meeting, okay. So like any kind of meeting, though, not necessarily in Parliament, say. You're talking about no. Yeah.
I would say I very when I think of democracy, I think of collective decision making between individuals that have a shared alignment or goal or something like that.
Okay. Well, do you remember learning about democracy in school?
Yes.
And yes, and it sounds like, especially in the student school. Anything.
However, my grade 9 civics teacher was particularly good. Okay. In that he actually, in prior senior teacher, was a partisan activist as well.
Okay.
And was very well liked among the student body because he was very cynical. And so I think I kind of had a little leg up as well in that sense of my understanding in terms of having someone teach civics, and it wasn't just these are the levels of government, but he'd be like, and this is how people operate in that level of government and all that. So I think my education was probably more unique in that sense, purely because of the teacher.
Yeah. Were there other times in the regular program where you felt like you were exposed to ideas around democracy?
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I was so unhappy at the art school, because there wasn't any democracy. I didn't see it as such, but I think in retrospect that my problem was is that we just did what we were told. Yeah. Which I didn't like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you said you had problems with authority. And that's, that's a kind of pejorative way to put it. But now what I hear you saying about being unhappy that there wasn't any democracy, those connected? That feeling of...
maybe not explicitly in my head at the time.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I think, thinking back on why I liked the student school so much compared to the art school, that's it. It wasn't because there wasn't a principal. Yeah. It was because of the way the teachers who were the administrators interacted with us and gave us the power to decide things.
It's amazing. Sounds amazing.